Places, we're going to tell you the story of a guest house. It was associated with this ranch. Back at the turn of the century, it was known as the Eldorado Ranch, and the person who built the guest house was the same person who owned this ranch and who built a remarkable mansion on this site. All that's left now is the exposed foundations of the basement, but at one time, this was a very impressive manor house for the Countess Bubna. She raised lots of prize-winning cattle and horses there, could grow lots of hay, but it was a long way from town, and she'd have some pretty important guests coming to visit her. But they'd have to arrive in Kelowna 15 kilometers away and then take a horse and buggy all the way out here. That's where her little guest house comes in. She decides to build the Eldorado Arms Hotel right down on the lake. We tell the story of the Eldorado Arms Hotel on this episode of Pioneers and Places. Welcome to Okanagan Pioneers and Places. Mike Roberts with our guest today. First guest on the subject, Ursula Surtees, the retired curator of the Kelowna Museum and the curator emeritus for the Courtney Paleontology Museum. I didn't know about that title. Congratulations. Okay. The story we're talking about is, of course, the building of the Eldorado Arms Hotel, and hanging in the set right now are two of the stained glass windows that were in the original Eldorado Arms. Can you know anything, Ursula, about the coats of arms here?
Well, when the hotel was standing, it had 3 windows, and we rescued all 3 of them, and each of them had a crest, which I believe is probably part of the crest of Countess Barbara Littner's husband. He very likely had several titles. A lot of them did. Each one of them had a crest. And this, of course, lent that special aura to the Eldorado.
When somebody says a hotel is built in the Okanagan in 1927 by the Countess Bubna, I say this is a story that's worth telling. Who was the Countess Bubna?
Well, she was born in Scotland, and her name was Irene Blair. And her mother married the Duke of Sutherland. She was his second wife. And so Irene was exposed to all the social mores of the time, and money and social standing. And I rather suspect that she had a rather lonely childhood in many ways, because children were quite often seen and not heard. Most of her young life was spent in Scotland, and then she travelled. And she met her to-be husband, the Count, and they married.
Count Bubna was from Austria, wasn't he?
He was, and from a little town called Lüttich, which is now, as I understand, part of Hungary. And they married, and
he was wealthy.
He was wealthy, and I imagine that she was wealthy as well, because when she traveled later in life without her husband because of political overtones, she came to Canada. She bought a magnificent ranch at Canmore, Alberta. Then she came to the Okanagan, and like so many people, fell totally in love with it, and also invested what was probably a considerable amount of money into buying the Postal Ranch, which she rechristened the Eldorado.
Now, this is just in Ellison, just above the airport.
Yes, near the airport.
And so the Eldorado Ranch, her name existed. I think it still is recognized by that name to this day.
It is. Well, until very recently.
Yeah. The era we're talking about here, I guess 1912 to about 1925 or so.
Well, it was 1919, I believe, that she actually came to the Okanagan and fell in love with the valley. And having fell in love with it, decided that she would like to spend more time here, which meant inviting friends and relations to come and visit and see the place that she had fallen in love with. Then she hit a snag. Where is she going to put these people?
They can't come up to the ranch. It's just a tattoo column.
Oh, no, we can't put them in the ranch, dear. I mean, really. And the Lakeview, no, there's too many rowdies down there. So This was a real big problem. So she decided there was only one thing to do, and she would have to build a suitable place. And so in 1926, she acquired some lakeshore property, and she engaged an architect by the name of Cullen to design it. And the following year, the hotel was built. It was a modest building, but very, very compatible with the kind of people that she was expecting to stay there. And, you know, we have the ambience of this wonderful place that looked as if it had just sort of grown like a mushroom out of the ground in this Tudor setting, with this lovely English garden that was laid out by Dorothea Walker, for whom the school
is named?
Right,
Yeah.
the very same one. And along came the guests. And when I was going through there, I was quite intrigued because at that time, ladies, quote, used in that term, didn't travel alone. They were efficient in many ways, but pretty dumb in some others. And so they had to have the ladies' maid. And so a number of these rooms had the main bedroom, and off the main bedroom was a small room, which we ordinarily would think, oh, that's for the children. That was for the ladies' maid, because who was going to dress Madame's hair?
Of course.
Yes.
So they traveled with an entourage, with a retinue, and so there was one room for the lady, and the room for her lady
maid.
in waiting, maid.
Exactly. And the gentleman had his gentleman's gentleman.
And they had a place with stained glass windows, with polished wood furniture, with well, I've heard that if you go to the Savoy Hotel in England, they said places to visit in the colonies, the Eldorado Arms Hotel in the Okanagan of British Columbia.
Well, because the reception hall was very reminiscent of going into a country house, with the polished floors, the polished furniture, flowers all over, the windows, both the diamond patterned and the stained glass, all had this wonderful ambience that immediately said, "You're home. This is the place."
It started off as a reasonably small place, but very quickly they knew an annex was needed, and then even cabins beyond.
Well, the very next year, it opened in 1927. The very next year, they added the annex with another 12 rooms and the 2 tennis courts. So I think that the lady knew that I think she was a very good businesswoman, and I think that she knew that this was not only successful for her, but successful as a business venture too.
And it became not only a place for her guests, but a place that the community liked to go to.
Well, it did, because it had a certain ambience. It did. It had its own atmosphere. It had this little snug, the bar, and the tiniest little bar, but you could sit down and on a bench and the tables, and there was a very close, nice atmosphere about it. And when you went for dinner, you could sit in the dining room and look down toward the lake. We looked through the English garden that had been so beautifully laid out with all the roses. It was a very lovely place to go to.
And it stood the test of time. She ceased having a part in it when?
Yeah, in 1933.
These are tough times. I mean, the Depression is in full depression. And do we know why she sold it or how she got rid of it?
No, I rather think that, she was feeling her years probably by that time, and the responsibility was there. And she sold it to someone who had been a manager of the CNR hotels and the Chateau Laurier. So
she made sure it was going into the right hands.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much for the starting story of the Eldorado Arms Hotel. It goes through a whole series of other owners up until the time that it falls into the hands of a former mayor of the city of Kelowna and his lovely wife, John and Jennifer Hindle, are back right after this break to tell us a few more stories about the Eldorado Arms Hotel. We enter a new era now with the Eldorado Arms Hotel. It is the Hindle era, and I have with me John Hindle, who owned it from 1962 to about 1974 or so. But tell me the story of good old Mr. Barrett, as you and he discussed maybe the final story of you buying it.
So I said to Mr. Barrett one day, I said, well, would you like me to help you? Because I just don't have too much work to do now.
Help him around the hotel.
Yeah, help him around the hotel. So we did that for about 4 days. And then finally I said, Mr. Barrett, he talked a bit about how difficult it was getting for him and so forth. And I said, well, if there's any chance that you'd like to, because I was working with him a little bit then, and I said, if there's a chance that you might like to give the Eldorado a new owner. And he said, oh, I'll speak to my wife and I'll talk to you tomorrow. And he talked to me that night. And so I went back again, and we agreed right there.
Why did you want to be a hotelier?
I've always liked people. I've enjoyed the ones that I saw there. They were nice people, and so I just felt that this would be something that my mother would enjoy as well. And eventually, maybe a young lady would come into my life and be enjoying the life of a innkeeper.
I wasn't allowed to meet him on the first trip that he made to Europe. There was just an allusion to this mythical person. I didn't know it had happened. 3 years later, he came back, still not having found a Canadian love to suit him. And my godmother agreed that she did know somebody that he could meet, and that perhaps she was ready. We met a few times over the week or 10 days before he left England. And he returned about 8 or 9 months later on the end of a telegram. And we got engaged that night. And then I got my first kiss. And we were married 4 weeks later. And we were in Canada 10 days after that.
Jennifer responsible for the staff?
Well, I'd rather like to say that I am pretty well at that sort of a thing too, because I do enjoy the people, yeah. And we help each other quite a bit. Most of the staff were people that had been coming for 20 or 30 years. And now their children were growing up, so one has to take care of kids. If you take care of the kids, and the mums and dads are as happy as can be. So I had this old taxi.
That's the old taxi that had this old horn?
That old horn.
Now, what was the, how would the taxi figure in?
People thought that it was a fire alarm. You should have seen them running out the door. But at any rate, things like that did happen, and it was lots of fun.
How did the taxi figure into taking care of children?
Oh, I'd get all the kids early in the morning, and I'd get something for them to eat on the way. And we would jump in the taxi and go down to the mailbox.
The Pied Piper of Hamelin was John Hindle. Those kids followed him around like a little train of gnomes. Everywhere he went, he had this tail following him, chirping away like baby birds. It was hilarious.
In the taxi, to the mail.
To the mail, to Dick Hall, always there, never missing that I ever remember, to the boats, to the skiing, to anything John needed done. You know, if he needed something washed down, he would recruit this tail of gnomes on the back of him and hand them a couple of hoses and let them fight over who got to hose down what. But there was always something fun. I mean, his mind works that way. His mind works with fun.
I decided I'd have to do something for the kids, so I thought that water skiing was getting very popular in those times. So I got a chap to help the kids in water skiing and so forth. But those little rascals would fall off all the time. And, you know, then you go around and around and around, and you've got other things to do, and of course they like being dragged. Yeah. So I said, okay, 3 trips, and if you don't get up on the 3rd trip, you're going home. And most of them managed to get up on the 3rd trip.
Who were some of the clientele? Can you give me the story of kind of the matriarch of the Whitall family, for example? Mm-hmm. Tell me about her preferences.
Well, she was a gracious lady, and she had a nice room upstairs.
Mrs. Whitall was one of our marvelous Vancouver grandmothers who came with the family for their summer holiday. And one wet morning, to our astonishment, the usual collection of children in the lounge just wasn't there. And normally on a wet day, the minute John walked in the door, these little voices would start. Why is it raining, Mr. Hindle? When's it going to stop raining, Mr. Hindle? When are you going to take us out in the boat, Mr. Hindle? Are we going to wait for the rain to stop, Mr. Hindle? And he used to go bananas. And this day, rainy day, not a child to be seen. But the waitress struggling up the stairs, first once, and then twice, and then a third time with an enormous tray loaded with kippers and Coke. And so he sent me to investigate, of course. And I brought him to see the scene of Mrs. Whittle teed up in bed with her wig on, very much askew, a poker table set up at the foot of the bed, and all these chirpy little birds sitting on the end of her bed, on the dresser, on any chair they could find, standing, all learning to play poker. And she was teaching them the kippers were a beautiful breakfast, but if they must, they could wash it down with Coke, because after all, it was a holiday. And here they all were, swilling away the kippers and Coke. And when Mrs. Whittle, John was asking her about it, and she said, "Oh, we're fine, darling, we're fine. What's that, Jamie? Oh, put another penny in the pot, darling."
Ante up. You had an owl, a kind of an owl jar on the bar.
Yeah.
What was the function of the owl jar on the bar?
Oh, dear. Well, I like the guests and the people. But when you get up at 4:30 or 5 in the morning and get ready, you don't want to run the bar all night long. So I had the habit of saying, here's the owl. If you needed a drink, pop it in the owl and help.
Pop some money in the
pop
owl
it in yourself,
and
yeah.
make it yourself.
And it was amazing, the number of people that like to make different kinds of refreshments. It was amazing.
And John Crittenden, the liquor inspector, used to phone from the last port of call on Lakeshore before reaching us and say, "Clean up your act, Hindle, and get that owl off the bar."
People who came to you just to get out of town, just to...
Well, I think the food was good, and
Company was fair.
company was fair, and we played cards and all that sort of thing.
Here is this hotel that introduces people from outside to people from the inside.
Burke's Dingwall, everybody knows that store.
Well, I don't know that they do, but
Well, they were the diamond.
Burke's Dingwall. It used to be known as Burke's Dingwall?
Yeah, that's
I only
right.
knew it as Burke's.
Well, I'm back in the past. And then anyway, this step was sitting there, and he changed every morning in a different kind of costume to have his breakfast. And I wandered around. If I find out, if I think people want to be talked to, that's fine. If you don't, you don't. But he looked at me and said, like this sort of thing. And he said, "I want to say that this is most marvelous improvement upon this hotel. I will come here forever." And I said, "Well, that's very kind of you, sir. I noticed that you're in the diamond business." He said, "I buy all the diamonds for the company." And I said, "Well, there's Jennifer over there. She might want to come and have a visit with you."
Did you
I don't know what happened.
I'll have to find out.
Yeah, you bet.
John, take a break here. Be back in a second to talk about the end of the Eldorado Arms Hotel. The last word goes to Jim Nixon. He discovered the Eldorado Arms Hotel some time ago, and he turned it into the Hotel Eldorado. How did you discover the Eldorado Arms Hotel?
I first discovered it like so many others. I was on a trip to the Okanagan. I had a friend who lived up in the Mission, and he loved the Eldorado, and he introduced it to me in the early 70s. And I don't think I ever forgot it. It was just such a great experience, even though it stopped working for a while. It went out of business for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. It was sad. I mean, it was sitting on the lakeshore all by itself there. It was all boarded up and vandalized somewhat, and it wasn't in very good shape. the development company was gonna tear it down. They're gonna take a wrecking ball to it at any moment. I was doing a development 3 miles down the lake here, a different development. I was going to do a strata-titled hotel, restaurant, bar type deal, and it just seemed like a great fit. You know, the L was going to be wrecked, and you know, I had a chance to save it. It was great.
Tell me how the hotel got from 3 miles south to its current location.
I contacted Riverside Forest Products. They had a big barge, the same barge that used to take the rail cars up and down the lake before the bridge. And they were good enough to donate the barge, and we took the old Al and put her on a barge and shipped her up the lake. Had a big sign on it that said, "Coming soon to a neighborhood near you." It was a fun day. We had literally thousands of people on the shore looking at the Eldorado floating down. And that was in '89, about February of '89. And I got it to the site and got it on land, you know, not without a bit of problems. We got it stuck. We thought we had 4 or 5 feet of draft. We ended up having about 18 inches, so we had to put a couple backhoses in the water right away, and we managed to get it on shore. And it took about, what we thought was going to be a 6-hour deal, took about 4 days. So we got it here, and I started renovating it right away. And we were hoping to open for the summer of that year.
Good evening. A piece of Kelowna's history went up in smoke early this morning. The Eldorado Arms Hotel caught fire and burned for 2 hours. There was little fire department officials could do to save the landmark, despite arriving within minutes of the call.
It was totally destroyed. It was a tragedy. It was really an awful feeling. I had never gone through that before. But we proceeded. I lost my financing, lost my zoning, lost my licensing, lost the whole bit. Had to redo it. And it just seemed like a good idea to rebuild it. So it's built as it was. We had old plans, and the walls and buildings are the same as what was here, and we got it open in 1990, St. Patrick's Day.
Who decides the style of a hotel?
You know, in this case, the Kelowna decided. You know, the people, the old timers. I mean, they demanded that it was. I came from. I had pubs. I had a hamburger background, and they, you know, they want lamb and seafood, and you know, they want an experience when they come to the Eldorado. And you know, we try to offer everything. We offer everything from pizzas to lobster. You know, to try and entice everybody. But people come, and it's a party.
My thanks to Ursula Surtees, John and Jennifer Hindle, and Jim Nixon for telling me part of the story of the Eldorado Arms Hotel. We'll see you next time on Pioneers and Places.